2 years ago today, my daughter and my life changed forever. My daughter was having meltdowns outside. My family and my ex's family were making constant reports to DSS, just badgering them. And so, Union County Department of Social Services caseworker Rachel Rushing told me that I needed to involuntarily commit my daughter for 3 days to get a break. I was not comfortable with that because she wasn't a harm to herself and others. She was just having meltdowns outside. My neighbors knew what was going on. It wasn't them calling the police. The police had been out there when they were called, and they weren't making reports to DSS because they understood the problem and they knew that I was, working on it with my daughter in therapy. So DSS caseworker Rachel Rushing told me to involuntarily commit her. I wasn't comfortable with that, so I reached out to my daughter's pediatrician and her therapist, both of which came back and said, no, not a good idea. She trusts you. Like, it's not what you do. And that was my concern. But of course, I grew up in a dysfunctional family, so I wanted to check myself. So I called Rachel Rushing back and I told her, I'm not comfortable with it. The professionals aren't comfortable with it. Her therapist recommended that you guys probably have some service providers to do in-home services. And a few hours later, 2 sheriff deputies, one was a Deputy Dobbins, who is the school resource officer at my daughter's school. They showed up and told me that I needed to come with them to go get an evaluation, or they were going to take out papers on me. I was scared. I asked them if my daughter could go to Carmen's house, which is my neighbor, and my daughter's friends with her granddaughter Kendall for while I was getting the evaluation. Carmen said it was okay, all that. She wouldn't let that happen. She said no, and I watched her radio to the school bus driver to tell the school bus driver to bring my daughter back to the school. Nobody would tell me anything. I was like losing it. They put me in handcuffs, which is unlawful. Brought me down to Atrium and Stallings emergency room to get a mental health evaluation. They gave me a drug test. The deputies stuck around and they saw that there was amphetamine, which was the Adderall, but they never stuck around for me to talk to, for the doctor to verify that or anything like that. They took blood. So, the blood work showed that it was Adderall and not methamphetamine. But that's how Union County does things. So they took my daughter. My daughter went back to the school. The school was waiting for her. This was all a pre-planned, premeditated situation. They knew that this was going to happen. I just didn't know. DSS knew that I had custody of my daughter. They knew that my ex did not. His mother did not. They had the custody paperwork since 2021. But oopsie, they decided to lose that custody paperwork and give my daughter to her father and grandmother. And I haven't been able to have a relationship with her since. I stayed overnight, did the evaluation. They watched me all night. I was never involuntarily committed. I mean, I ate my dinner with a knife and fork. If you know anything about being involuntarily committed, like if you're a danger to yourself and others, they give you a spork, if that. I got out of the hospital early the next morning because I had to see, I think, like 2 different psychiatrists when I first got there, or I saw the attending doctor, a psychiatrist, and then another psychiatrist in the morning so that they could all evaluate me. The nurses watched me all night and spoke with me. They found no problem, no findings. So the next morning I got out of the hospital and called them and said, I think I asked my neighbor Carmen. I think when I got out of the hospital that whole day, I thought my daughter was in school, So right before the bus was about to be dropped off, where my daughter was not going to be on it, I think my mom maybe called me. Someone called me, and I think it was Carmen, said, like, no, she's with her dad. And I started freaking out, like, what? Mind you, after they sent me to the hospital, Sharon Laney came to the hospital and said, what do you want to do? I said, well, I've already told the deputies, like, my friend Carmen, she can come pick her up. Well, they decided to leave the hospital and do what they wanted anyway and say that they lost the custody paperwork. All because I said, no, I'm not comfortable putting my daughter in an involuntary commitment, abandoning her when she needs me the most. Like, she's hurting and we're trying to figure out what's going on and get her the help she needs. And abandoning her is just not in her best interest. That's how this all began 2 years ago. And I've been fighting these people, the people who kidnapped my daughter, who pulled all these little games and all these little tricks for 731 days now to have a relationship with my daughter. And all I've received from them is lies, threats, trying to silence me. And all I've ever been fighting for this whole time is things to be done for the best interest of my child. And they don't care about that. They care about making money. They care about slandering parents. They care about false allegations and false narratives. And there's a bunch of them that have been working really hard to take me down. And the crazy part is that for 731 days, I mean, they've been in my Google account, my bank account, because my attorneys have just let them do whatever they wanted to do. They had like 24/7 surveillance. They had a tracker on my car, all those things. And nothing has transpired because I'm not doing anything wrong. So for me to send a cease and desist demand over 72 hours ago, and for their response to be calling me a methamphetamine trafficker and the criminal chart, like, it's telling of how they respond to people when people are just asking for them to do the right thing, to follow the law, and to do things for the best interest of the child, not the best interest for themselves. And it's been 2 years of hell. They unlawfully evicted us by allowing my mother and my ex to do it, which they had no right. They stole my property. They ran me around for a year at all these expenses, and I'm disabled. Oh, not to mention the fact that they allowed my attorney to come to the courtroom and say that I couldn't understand court proceedings. So they could do all kinds of stuff with a guardian that I have no idea who my guardian is. I know who my guardian ad litem attorney was, and he did nothing either. This is how the Union County Department of Social Services does business, and none of it is done in the best interest of the child. All of it is done in their best interest. There are payoffs, bribes, all kinds of things that are skirting the best interest of the child. It's the best interest of these people's pockets, of them, committing Social Security fraud and, making money off my daughter that's intended for her. All of which not in the best interest of the child.